what I want to do is I want to wrap up on just a couple thoughts before we break it for Mega Madness. But the idea of selling marketing to millennials. So we've talked about everything within your organization, within your firm. So I want to talk briefly about this idea of how we sell, how we market, how we get their attention, because they're different. If we think about these other generations, if you think about the boomer generation, so much was about quality. Right? Everything was about quality. Stores were smaller. It was about the quality of the furniture. It was about the quality of the products. It was about the quality of the service. And then it changed, right? For the Xers, it changed quite a bit. Because in the 80s, all of a sudden, a lot of the big box stores came in, and the Walmarts, and a lot of the imports, and so a lot of things happened. And then a lot of it became price and price sensitivity. And it changed buying perceptions and the way people engaged. And millennials have changed again. Right? Some people say, they just want the cheapest thing out there. That's simply not true. Right? If the boomers were for quality, if the Xers were for price, the millennials are for value, which is different. If you think about your quality and you divide it by your price, that's value. People say millennials don't want to spend money. That's not true. You look at their computers, you look at their phones, you look at their cars, you look at their clothes, you look at these different things. If they view it as quality, but more importantly, if their social network supports it and views it as quality, views it as a good value, it's something they'll pursue. When we think about selling and marketing millennials, there's three key things. The first thing we have to think about is expertise. When we're talking to, when we're engaging with a millennial, you have to be the expert. That's it. If you think you can pull the wool over anybody's eyes or give a piece of information that you're not so sure about, no way. You will be fact-checked as you speak. How many times in your store have you been there and somebody busts out a smartphone? Start checking prices, start checking reviews, right? There's a stat that I came across last night. I was doing some reading, and there's a stat that I just, my favorite stat, that of the millennials that go to some type of church service, 4 out of 10 fact-check the sermon. The priest, the pastor, the preacher, they fact-check what that person says. That's the right scripture? Ooh, got that one wrong. Check that one off. I'm not coming back here. But that's a big part of it. This idea of authenticity is incredibly important. Authenticity and being the expert is one of the most important things when selling to and marketing to millennials. We have to do it. A great example of this where it backfired is a few years ago. Some of you may have seen the advertisement or heard about it. There was a big media buzz. The GOP, the Republican Party, was trying to drum up support. They were trying to recruit this new millennial generation, getting support from a political standpoint. And so they had a series of commercials that they launched. And there was one commercial where there was an individual, and he was standing there, and he was young. He was a millennial and hipster. And he had these glasses on and skinny jeans and everything that I refused to wear. And he's standing there, and he's pumping gasoline, and he's got a Lexus or an Audi, and it's a $60,000 vehicle, and he's pumping gas there, and he's like, man, the economy's so tough. I just don't know if I'm going to be able to survive another week because it's so terrible. Right? And the millennials, no matter what political belief they had, were in an uproar because it wasn't authentic. The authenticity was lost. And it destroyed the media campaign because it said, you're going to try to tell us that this person is struggling with everything that they have. Authenticity and expertise, most important thing. Next thing is creating that experience. The experience is different. The experience in the interaction is typically much shorter. It's much more focused. There's usually more information from the get-go, from the onset of the interaction. We talk about the idea, you may have heard the term of insight selling, where you actually start the conversation with information, factual information. We have to. If we drag it out, if it goes too long, if all of a sudden the longevity of that interaction draws out, they disengage. Because this is a group that likes to react. YouTube generation, pieces of information, move forward. If you're not taking advantage of social media, it's something you need to think about, because this is where they're getting their evidence. This is where they're getting their reviews. This is where they're seeing what everybody else is doing. And that's important, because the biggest anxiety for a millennial is the fear of being left out. The fear of not knowing what other people are doing because they're so connected. And this ties to the last part, and that's the emotional element. Using the emotion of what other people are doing and getting them engaged as well. We talk about the idea of storytelling in sales. We talk about the idea of what other people are doing. This is a generation where it truly works. For the boomers and the Xers, the storytelling and some of this type of approach isn't as effective. For this generation, these stories and showing this information and these reviews has a great deal of impact. What we need to do is we need to start to justify with numbers and compel with emotions. That's how we truly have impact.